Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
So, now that I forgot to hit the actual main button on our feed for the show, so iHeartRadio was getting the feed. Excuse me while I tinker with things because I'm a moron today, Eric. Yes, I know, you're shocked. It's like any other day. Really? When aren't you a moron? I know.
Well,
I
perhaps
know.
you're distracted by the Facebook Live.
Well, I was a little bit, but I'm okay now. Hey, everybody. Anyhow, we're
God,
back.
yes.
Cool
I know,
stuff
you're
coming
shocked.
right. It's like
I
any
know,
other day.
you're shocked.
Really?
It's
When
like
aren't
any
you a
other
moron?
day.
I
Wow.
know.
Well-
Where is that coming from? Wow, did you hear that feedback?
I did not.
Wow, I heard some major feedback. Okay, we are right back at you tonight. We have a great show on tap. You know, I was kind of kicking around the Facebooks having the flu this week, so it gives me a lot of time to, talk about nonsensical things. Like what kind of movies you hate, right? And I
Yes.
simply put out there, what was the worst movie you ever saw? Man, did I get a response on Facebook. Now, I got to ask you, Eric, what is the worst movie you ever saw?
I saw that and was actually thinking about it. And like some of your other responders, I don't really dwell on the worst
No.
because, if I'm home, I'll just turn it off, right?
Yeah.
I have very rarely left the movie theater, but I did leave the movie theater. I have got to remember the name of it. I got to go back and look it up. There was a parody
Okay.
of Watergate
Oh,
done with nuns
with nuns. So
Nuns.
we're talking about the young
of
ladies that
Watergate.
are in the habits.
Done with exactly in a convent
with
So
nuns. With
it
nuns.
was-
So you're
nuns,
talking
nuns.
about interesting. Well, we got to get rid of
Young
some
lady.
feedback. I don't know
It was
where
Watergate.
that's
Oh,
coming
oh.
from in the habits.
done with exactly in a convent.
With
So
nuns. With nuns. That is absolutely insane, and we were getting some real feedback there again. Let me fix and remedy the problem, Eric, as we discuss the world's problems about nuns and Watergate. So, yeah, I put that out there for the Facebook faithful to kind of talk back to us on, and you saw a movie now. Now the feedback's gone, thank God. Having to do with nuns and Watergate?
Yeah, it was a parody of Watergate. So the unfolding events of Watergate.
Okay.
And it was set in a convent with nuns. So instead of the Oval Office and the president and his men, it was, the Mother Superior in a convent. And it started off kind of clever. You thought, oh, okay, that's interesting that
Sure.
we know what they're doing now. They're recreating the events of Watergate. And it was soon after. It was the 70s, definitely 70s. And it was just awful. It was so labored and it was so painfully obvious once you got it, And I'm going to have to look up the title because honestly, I don't remember. But in my mind, that was the worst movie I've ever seen because it had a pretty big name cast. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was a pretty high, this was supposed to be a real film. It wasn't a B movie or a C movie or a D movie, which you don't expect nearly the same.
So it was something that was actually someone put some money behind?
Money and star power, and it was just god-awful.
And they were saying to themselves, I know it'd be a great film. Let's do Nuns and Watergate. Why not? How can we go wrong with that? That's a winner.
How can we go wrong?
That's solid gold right there, baby.
Exactly. Except it was not.
Except it was great
really-
until you saw it.
Really quite atrocious.
Are you trying to tell me that there was no redeeming quality to this film whatsoever?
Not really, no.
Oh.
I mean, once you got the joke, right? Okay, this is about
Yeah.
Watergate.
It's satire. It's satirical is what it
Yes,
was. Okay.
it was satirical. Yes, exactly. But it wasn't funny.
Watergate. Why
And once
not?
you
How
got
can we
it,
go
it
wrong
just-
with
it
it?
was
That's a
just,
winner.
okay, yep, that's Watergate.
Solid
Yep.
gold
I
right
get
there,
it. I see
baby.
what they did there. There was no entertainment value. It was not funny, and it was not edifying. I mean, I didn't learn anything about Watergate from watching it.
No, you didn't learn anything. Watergate didn't matter at that point. I mean, you saw right through the show, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, this is great. Oh, we all know what happened to Watergate. We don't need nuns to run around and do it again for us.
Exactly. It was just so labored. You know what I mean? There was no lightness to it, and it was funny. If you're going to do a satire, it better be either extraordinarily clever and cutting, or it better be funny. And it just wasn't funny.
It was kind of like the Monty Python stuff. That was kind of so bad it was good at times.
Well, I love Monty Python, so I'm not sure I would make that comparison.
Listen, you defend them right away. I like me the Monty. What are you talking about?
Oh, I love them. I love them. They're hilariously weird. I mean, they're strange. There's no doubt about it. And, they're certainly an acquired taste, but they were a taste acquired by tens of millions and have held up really well. I've just watched some Monty Python recently, and I thought, wow, that was really funny. So, I mean, yes, sometimes they were satirical, but it was always with an eye toward being funny. If you're not funny, what's the point?
Well, that is true. I mean, if you can't be funny or poke fun at it, what's the point of doing it? You're absolutely correct there. And but anyhow, when I put this out there, this what was the worst movie you'd ever seen in your entire existence? Oh my God, the floodgates opened up on us. Is what they did. It was something else. I mean, you got your normal stuff. My two that I hated more than anything in this world, and will always hate for movies, are these two. Eric, are you ready?
I am prepared.
The Village and The Happening. And I know they're both M. Night Shyamalan films, and I know I should give the guy a pass because he has not had it easy in Hollywood as of late. But they were horrible films. You know you're in for a bad movie when you're walking into the theater, and the crowd before that's coming up in the first showing is telling you, dude, do not see this movie. Just do not see this. And what did I do? I went in and I did, and both of those movies, because I went to go see the late show of these, both of these movies, they came back, both crowds, just don't do it, man. Just don't do it. If you enjoy your sanity at all, man, do not go in.
Honestly, I was so warned away from those two by yourself and others previous to you. I have never watched either one.
Really? Well, then you are a blessed man.
I feel good about it. No wasted time.
Well, that's good because it's an absolute horror of it's a horrible film. There's no redeeming quality in that film. Either one of them.
I have not heard anything really very good about either one.
I mean, if you want to see them, I think both of them on DVD, and I'd be more than happy to lend them to you.
I like him. I put it this way. When I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So he has several films I really like. I thought they were clever. I thought they were interesting. I know we were talking about who didn't like, was it Clarissa? Someone really didn't like Signs. I thought Signs was great.
I'm the one. I wasn't a big fan of it either. Signs personally, but
I like Signs.
Yeah, people either loved it or they hated it. But the thing of it is I'm trying to find the original post here, and it's quite humorous. We're having some tech issues tonight in studio. I don't know what the heck's going on, Eric, but we will get through this. Not a problem. So I put it out there. What was the worst movie you ever saw in your life? And man, was there the floodgate again that just opened. People were saying, wow, the biggest one, the biggest loser that would win our Razzie. See, The Room you can't count because people said The Room. But The Room was just bad to be bad. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it has the reputation of being bad. See,
it's
you can't
considered
really-
one of the greatest awful films of all.
Yeah, so, and I don't know, have you ever sat through The Room?
No, just part of it.
Oh, God. That it is bad. It is really, it is so bad, of course, that you had James Franco that came out and made The Disaster Artist, a bad movie about a bad movie.
Exactly.
So Fried Green Tomatoes made it on the list. Every female I've ever known loved that movie. Steel Magnolias made the list. People that didn't like that, of course, those are the guys amongst us saying that. Fargo. You remember Fargo, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you betcha that made the list. Cannot handle. Jodelle hates it. Let's see. You have all sorts of just down the list, but one I was not shocked by. Mark hates the Star Wars prequels. All of them.
I do too.
It's just a whole, they should not exist.
I kind of have to agree. I find them so tedious.
I've never seen them.
You've never seen them?
No, I've never sat through them.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I mean, as great as the first three, or the original three, I should say, are, they, have a real spirit to them and a panache, and you love the characters and on and on and on. As good as they are, those next three, the middle three, the 90s three, are so tedious and
Really?
boring, and they just go on and on and on, and not all that much happens. The ending of the third one, where he becomes Darth Vader,
Okay.
what leads to that has some emotion
There
to
was
it.
some decency to that. I mean, at least some substance to that particular entry.
The third of the three definitely is the least bad, and it has moments. I mean, it's pretty powerful as he becomes Darth Vader, but really, just taken as a whole, they really don't need to exist, to be honest.
Well, it's got to be a reason why George Lucas has kind of acted like they don't exist. They don't exist. They're dead to me. Boba Fett, you're dead.
It's too bad that they weren't better done. It's too bad that they just missed the spirit. I like the newer ones much, much better.
Yeah, I don't mind the newer ones. I haven't sat through quite the whole thing of Han Solo yet, but I will eventually.
That one
Netflix.
I have not seen.
Yeah.
I've seen the two, Star Wars proper films, and I've seen that Rogue One, which was pretty good too. They're well done. They have some spunk. I thought this latest, The Last Jedi, I thought that was quite powerful. I thought that was good. So I mean, these can fit with the original three, but the 90s three, the prequels, they just don't have it. And for all of the detail and all the length and all the nonsense, there's no there. There's no reason to watch them. It's not fun. It's not cool.
But like you said, no reason for them to truly exist. Human Centipede made the list. Human Centipede was always horrible. That was always made to be horrible. Another reason why this is kind of brought up was, they're remaking the Pet Sematary, the Stephen King classic. Was a mid-1980s, early 1980s Pet Sematary film.
Yes.
That's got a lot of people don't quite know how to feel about that.
Well, they're leery, of course.
Yeah, I'm hopeful because it turned out really well. The remake of It was done real well, but then again, the first one was a TV series, where this is a movie. You can be a little edgier. In a movie, especially an R-rated movie, you can be edgier than you can be on a TV show. So I thought that came out real well.
Interesting about it, sorry to interject there just before we move on. We saw it at the movie theater, and I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. And then we got it. We got the 4K home version of it. And watched it again at home. And I actually liked it much better the second time. So that's a really good sign. It held together a lot better for me the second time. I cared more about the characters. It was scarier, actually, I thought, the second time around. So that's a good sign. I liked it. It went from like a B- to a B+ when I watched it at home.
It's so much better at home anyway. I've really grown to love my 4K, big screen TV over actually going to the movie anymore. I would rather do that. I'd rather stay at home now.
It depends. I mean, I agree with you in terms of it's so much more convenient to be home and you're comfortable and you can wear whatever you want. You can pause the movie whenever you want. You can go to the bathroom. You can get food. You can,
no sea of cell phones. No huge ocean of cell phones glowing in front of you.
Right. So in general, for all of those reasons, and the fact that we both have nice big 4K TVs and we can watch 4K discs, and I mean even Blu-rays look great on the old 4K TV. So all of that is great. I would say there are certain films that kind of depend on scale, where I would rather see them on the really, really big screen and with the really, really big booming sound system.
See, now I got the big booming sound system to go with it. Oh, yeah.
Well, but still, it's not. I do too, but it's not the same as a movie theater.
I hear you. Yeah, I still do like going to the movies, but if there's a movie I really like, I'll get it on disc and watch it again at home and probably enjoy it a little bit more because that convenience factor, because you can pause, because you can rewind it, stuff like that. And like this weekend, I'll be checking out Overlord. I haven't seen that one yet. I got that disc in the mail. So I'll be checking
got really good
out.
reviews. People like that a lot.
That's what I heard. So this week I'm going to sit down and watch the Overlord. But talking to people on Facebook, very, very mixed reviews. There's just some movies that people loved and a whole lot of movies people hate. And some of them I were really surprised on that they hated. Fargo, for a lot of people, they either loved or they hated. If you're from Minnesota, you hated that movie. But if you're out of Minnesota, they loved it. In fact, when I've gone traveling to other parts of the country, I've mentioned, hey, I'm from Minnesota. And a lot of them don't pick up the accent because I guess I've been told I don't have much to rewind it.
No, you don't.
Stuff
Especially
like
not
that.
on the
and
air.
like this weekend, I'll be checking out Overlord.
So
I haven't seen that one.
I'm
Going to go ahead and
They loved it.
get rid of that feedback again. I'm sorry, Facebook Live, but there seems to be a feedback glitch where it wants to loop audio right back to us, Eric.
I am not hearing any of that, but I would say viciously control it.
I'm doing the best I can, to get that taken care of. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, Overlord and stuff like that, watching that. Hopefully it's a great film. But getting back to what I was saying, people either loved it or hated it. And some of the movies that have won Oscars over the years, I shook my head going, how did you win a damn Oscar? You're horrible.
Yeah, a lot of times, there probably aren't a whole lot of them that I think are literally horrible. I mean, I at least get why people liked them. But there's been a lot of movies that were kind of a sensation at the time, but don't really hold up all that well.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. They're hot at that moment. And the Oscars have always favored the art house films anyway.
Typically, yeah.
They really haven't, like the big budget summer blockbuster movies have always been snubbed traditionally at the Oscars.
This year, there's the best chance because there are a few of the true blockbusters that are nominated.
Yeah.
Like Black Panther, like Stars Born.
Do you think, though, that should be included?
Sure. You shouldn't be penalized for being successful, as far as I'm concerned.
I wonder why that is. Why have they always leaned towards the art house stuff, the Oscars?
Oh, just because the Academy, and that's who votes, they think of themselves as artists.
Summer blockbuster movies have always been snubbed traditionally at the Oscars.
Artists. So this year, there's the best chance. I would turn it off because there are a few of the true blockbusters that are nominated with it later.
There, we got rid of the Facebook Live feed. I do apologize for everyone that is listening to Facebook Live. We'll get that remedied down the road. Probably just not tonight. We got to figure out why the heck it has decided that it wants to do the loop back at us. So we're going back old school, Eric, just over the airwaves. So
audio only.
Audio only, so I do apologize for anyone that was tuning in via the Facebook Live feed, but here we are going audio only, the old school way of doing things. All right, getting back to what I was talking about is the movies. Now, you have the Oscars are coming up, but we could talk about that another day because there's a lot of front runners. What's more important is that guy's getting charged now in Chicago. Did you see that?
Yeah, he was charged today, and he was on the set of Empire 2 hours later.
Right? Right? Now, I wonder what they're going to do. What are they going to do with this actor now that, okay, he hasn't been convicted, obviously, hasn't been charged. I mean, he has been charged, but he has not been convicted. What are they going to do if it does indeed come out that this was all a hoax to get further in his own career?
Well, supposedly they've already rewritten this season, and they've already decreased. I guess he was going to be a featured plot line. His career, his life, whatever was going on with him. I haven't watched that show, Empire, I have to admit. But supposedly they've already rewritten, later episodes of this season to decrease his involvement. So I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out. It really doesn't sound good. Did you hear any portion of the police commissioner?
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw that tonight on.
he was extraordinarily angry, and he was very accusatory. So I mean, they have to be really sure, or they wouldn't have gone out on a limb like that.
Yeah, they really have to be sure that he is. They think he's guilty, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going after him so hard on this. But really, doesn't it kind of set things back, though? Hate crimes and the way things are looked at, because these incidences where people are using that particular thing to get further in their own, for their own personal agenda. I mean, he should be held to a higher standard as a public figure anyway.
Well, he certainly shouldn't be cut any slack, that's for sure, because, as they said, due to his high profile and the amount of attention that he himself drew to the alleged crime, they had 12 detectives working day and night on his case alone for like 3 weeks.
See,
imagine how the manpower, imagine how much money,
yeah,
resources
hundreds
it
of
took away from other crimes.
Yeah, and why did he get? Obviously, got the attention because he is who he is, and Chicago doesn't want any more of a black eye, so to speak, as than it already does have.
Right.
From what they have going on, they don't want any more blemishes on their record, and so when it comes out that someone is pulling shenanigans like this, yes, tomfoolery and shenanigans.
I'd say both.
Both at the same time. They should be held to that higher standard.
And he was charged with a felony.
Yeah, he won't see any time. He'll get.
I think he will. I think if he's convicted, he will at least see some. I hear everyone who's talking about this says, under other circumstances, you're right. He probably would not. But due to the notoriety, due to how much time and expense went into this, and due to just the abject nature of it, apparently he did all this because he was unhappy with what he was getting paid by Empire.
And he's just a kid, though, really, in the grand scheme of things. He's just starting his career. You don't get paid the big bucks right away.
Well, this is not the path you take.
No, it's not. No, it
to
is
raise
not.
your profile
No.
and get paid better. This
No.
is not the path to take.
No.
Who knows if he's going to be able to resurrect his career at all? He could be a pariah forever if he doesn't handle it.
Yeah.
Really, really well.
Yeah. Oh, Deb says to watch The Free State of Jones on Netflix. It's an amazing movie, by the way. If you're looking for something good to watch, Eric.
Alrighty then, I will. I have heard of that. I have not watched it yet.
On the 4K TV, she says. Go ahead. Give it a try. It's worth your time.
Thank you.
She also knows that you're a big history guy. So
I will do just that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for weighing in on that. And I'll have to check it out, too. I've not watched that yet. I've been tempted to click the play. Matthew McConaughey, I go either way on him.
He is, I agree. Sometimes he's amazing and fantastic and is perfect for a role. Other times he's just a self-parody,
Right? All right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you never know what you're going to get.
No, you never know. He is like that box of chocolates on Forrest Gump.
He certainly
You just
is.
do not know. Now, did you ever see the movie The Dark Tower? Speaking of,
I
kind
did.
of,
I did actually
did
see
you
that.
like it?
I liked it pretty well. It
Yeah,
didn't get very good reviews. I remember you said you liked it okay.
yeah,
I liked it pretty well. I didn't. I haven't read any of the stories. I haven't read the novels, so I don't have that to compare it to. I'm
yeah.
sure it's not as good. Obviously, it rarely is.
It's not even the same book. It's got characters in the book, but the movie is so far from the novels that I wasn't even sure I was watching a movie based on
Is
the novel.
is that it's condensed,
It is so.
or is it just changed?
It's changed a lot, and it's so horribly condensed. I mean, these books were thicker than the Bible. These particular, these
But I
Dark
know
Tower.
there's several, right?
Yeah, several volumes, and I think they tried to take every volume and put it in this movie.
Elements of it.
Just
Yeah.
it just didn't. It really felt patchworked, is what it felt like.
I
Yeah.
totally get that, and that makes sense. Purely as a standalone film, I thought it was reasonably compelling, kind of interesting. The imagery, cinematography was really good. I like that. I like the art direction. I like the look of it quite a bit. And the acting was fine. It wasn't, super great. Idris Elba, he's always good. I didn't think that was one of his best roles, but
No.
but it was better than I anticipated. I certainly would recommend it moderately to people who like, certainly Stephen King,
Yeah.
people who like, horror, fantasy, that kind of thing. This one, there wasn't so much horror. It's more kind of sci-fi fantasy, I guess.
Yeah, it's more there. I know my wife, she was looking forward to seeing forever a movie called The Mountain Between Us. And
Yeah,
she's
my wife watched
Oh,
that.
yeah, she's a big fan of the survival genre. Are they going to survive? Like if you're caught in a mountain. She for instance, loved the movie Everest because, that whole survival theme and, against the elements. And she was thinking she's going to go in and watch this great survival movie. Nope, turned into a love story on her halfway through. God, she was pissed.
Oh, she doesn't like the love story.
She doesn't mind the love stories if that's what she's buying. If she knows she's going into it, it's going to be a love story, right? It was never billed as a love story. It was billed as these two people against the elements.
Right. I remember that. And that was why Dawn watched it too. I remember it took her about 3 sittings to finish it. She was interrupted, and I think she kind of sort of lost interest, but she wanted to finish it.
It wasn't that great either. And then there's another one called 47 Meters or whatever it's called. That was horrible too. I was so hoping, if you haven't seen that one yet, don't watch it. I was so hoping those 2 chicks would have been eaten by the sharks.
But no.
They weren't. No. See, they go diving. Okay, spoiler alert here really quickly, guys. These 2 bubblehead blondes, these 2 rich, entitled bubblehead blondes, they decide that they are going to go diving illegally off the coast or wherever, Mexico, with Paco and Raul, people that they've never met in their lives. But hey, why not go on a boat and let them lure you in a cage? So they go underwater, allegedly swimming with, of course, great whites in the Gulf of Mexico, which doesn't really make any sense. But hey, we'll go there because they're not really known to really travel in those waters. But here we go. So they're underwater with these sharks, and of course, hijinks ensue, and they get stuck, and the chain breaks that's on the cage, and the sharks are ramming the cages, and we don't know if we're gonna survive. And unfortunately, they did. They did survive.
Oh well,
unfortunately.
bum me up.
I know.
Bum me up.
I was so hoping Jaws was gonna come along and I'd see some blonde hair and blood, man.
Oh well, yeah,
Exactly.
it's fun to root against people, and then when they don't get their comeuppance, that sucks. Hey, what I was just doing at this moment was my fingers were finally free. I've been trying to figure out what the best approach is to be, on the air and to be able to dedicate a computer to make sure there's no glitches, nothing slows it down. Anyway, I'm working from 2 computers. I looked up the film that we were talking about.
Yes.
I was talking about. It's called Nasty Habits.
Oh, I'm gonna have to take a look at it just for some
and
laughs.
and it was 1977, and it was a huge cast. I mean, it was a
Really?
star-strewn.
Put some
cast.
money into it.
Big
Wow.
money. Well, I mean, it's British.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
I
won't
don't
hold
know.
that against them.
I'm not going to hold it against him, but it was just truly awful. But
Nasty
listen who's in it.
habits.
Glenda Jackson, Melina
Really?
Mercuri, Geraldine Page, Sandy Dennis, Ann Jackson, Ann Mira. Every one of them were big
Yeah, they were
stars
back in those days.
or very well-known actresses, in the 70s. Glenda
Sure.
Jackson, was one of the all-time
I
greats.
know.
And it was just awful.
It sounds, man, I will have to check it out, though, just to laugh at something. We have to run a break.
Nasty habits.
Nasty habits. We have to run a break. We come back. We're going to go over your America's Most Haunted Headlines. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey. Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
She's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
What do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torrin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. And got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torrin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me.
Eric Olson.
And tonight we're talking all things creepy and small-time monsters. Small-town monsters. Oh, my God, beat me up. It's been a cursed night, man. It's been a cursed night from hell.
Accursed is the night.
Accursed is the night tonight. Nothing wants to work correctly. I tell you what, I'm in a horrible studio doing horrible things. So, yeah. Anyhow, we got that going for us.
Well, indeed. You mentioned this. I think you mentioned it last night. I guess you're going to introduce our Twitter feed.
Yes,
feature.
exactly. Well, tonight, go on over to Twitter and fire that up and go follow us over at twitter.com. Search out AM Haunted or America's Most Haunted. Twitter feed, join the rest of them. We're 458,000 followers. Good man, Eric. And follow along and make sure you also check out our cool and awesome webpage, which is, as always, America's-Most-Haunted.com. Oh, the people that are listening live say, thank God we have you back. It wasn't fair that they on Facebook Live were able to get all the love.
Aw.
Oh, come on now. We never truly left you. We were just
No,
sharing.
we just added.
We're kind of, slutty that way. I mean, in a radio kind of way of speaking.
We're radio tarts.
Radio tarts.
That's what we are.
We'll go with anyone that pays the bills.
Exactly.
We don't care.
Or even just listens.
Anybody.
Anyone who
Anybody.
listens.
You show
Anyone
up.
with ears or money.
Exactly, and preferably both.
Both are best of all. Ears and money.
Yeah, that gets to the top of the list every time. So go on over to twitter.com, search out AM Haunted, America's Most Haunted, and after you're done, make sure you visit America's-most-haunted.com. There you're gonna find all the great. I can't do it, man. I was laughing too hard with you and your ears and money.
Well, you know,
Ears and money. We want both.
I think there's a rap song. Life ain't nothing but ears and money. Well, I don't think it was ears, but it was money. All right. Well, thank you. Yes, we are at twitter.com/AMHaunted. And the reason you should go, and you don't have to be a Twitter member, you don't have to belong, you don't have to do anything, but then you can see the pictures and you can follow the links. And a lot of this is very visual. All right. You mentioned it last night. But, of course, we should talk about it on Paranormal Night here at After Hours AM, America's Most Haunted Radio. It's a little deceptive in terms of what the ratings represent, but you were right that the Sunday's episode of The Walking Dead, which was the backstory of Alpha, who's the head whisperer, I thought it was a pretty good show.
I did too.
For the most part. I like this season a lot better than last season. Now that we're into the new generation, you know, we've skipped way ahead, or I should say this half of the season, that we've skipped ahead several years and are into an entirely different scene with new bad guys and all of that. I don't know what's going to happen with Negan now that he's found his old place and escaped. I don't know what's going to happen with him. But anyway, the Whisperers are the new big bads.
They are.
We're hearing about the backstory of the leader of the Whisperers, called Alpha, and she is the mother of this girl who was captured by our heroes. And yes, that episode is the lowest rated ever. Now, they are saying there were some mitigating circumstances. It was the NBA All-Star game. And
Sure.
At the exact same time. And The Walking Dead has become a show that does very, very well with DVR. So they say it'll basically double by the end of the week. So before the next show episode airs on Sunday, the numbers from last week will have doubled. But nonetheless, it was still the lowest rated live in the history of the show. And no matter how you couch it, that can't be a good sign.
Well, wait a second. How can they know how many people are actually DVRing this thing?
Well, they keep track of that. That's built into the ratings now. That's why they have
in the Nielsen.
Yeah, they have live. They have I think then there's another dividing line like the next day, like +1. Then it's +3. Then it's +7, something like that, where they keep adding in up to I think a week is up to the next episode, basically.
Now I heard a little birdie that knows some inside scoop on the show has told me that that AMC's already ordered a season 10, but beyond that it's up in the air because before they ordered 4 seasons in advance.
Right. Well, I would say it's time to start being a little more cautious because while even now, even with that low rating, last Sunday, and not even taking into account the the DVR numbers, which and it's on demand. It's not just DVR; it's also on demand. It's all the ways that you can watch it, right?
Yeah.
So they add all that in and come up with some kind of number. But even with all that, again, it's not a good sign when your numbers keep going down. I read, kind of an analysis of it, and from 2 seasons ago, which I guess was the peak, maybe it was the beginning of 2 seasons ago is when they peaked, but it's down 60%.
Oh, that's just amazing.
In 2 seasons.
Yeah, well, it had to happen, though. What goes up has to come down.
Right.
It's like any other trend in TV. I mean, people start losing interest. The shock value is kind of gone from The Walking Dead now. Long time ago. Rick's gone. That was a big blow. Norman Reedus seems like he is the guy that's going to be taking the mantle now, being the head person, the marquee actor, which is fine and dandy if that's what you want to see. but it's really not as good as it once was, in my opinion, and mainly because it's not fresh anymore. That's the
I agree with that. It's actually this season anyway. It may actually be a better made show than it has been. Not at any time, but most of the time.
Oh, I agree. I think The Whisperers would be great. But
I agree with you. It has certainly lost the specialness and the uniqueness and the freshness. And how can it not?
Do you remember though when The Walking Dead first came on and they blow the heads off zombies? You never saw that on cable, even cable TV, very often. That level of gore.
No,
it was a shock.
Shocking. And some of the language too.
Yeah, so it was. Whoa! Wow! It was like watching a zombie movie. And now every show is getting that edgy.
Exactly. And so, like it pioneered, it blazed a trail, and it did, unlike a lot of trailblazers, at least it had the success that it deserved. But now it's backing off. But even with all this that we're talking about, it's still the top-rated show on cable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it will live on in syndication for years.
Right.
I mean,
totally true.
They have 10, at the very least, 10 years, 10 seasons of this show. Oh, yeah, look, Star Trek is still in syndication. That thing's going to be forever.
Right.
And that was only 3 seasons of that.
When Rick left, that episode, that last episode with Rick heading off, we do find out at the end that he lived, but, he's gone. At that point, I honestly was kind of thinking maybe I'm ready to move on. Yeah. But, we've been watching this season. I think it's a lot better. It did get some new freshness. It did come back, I think. And it's on some new legs. And sure, ratings are down, but it'll keep going as long as people are watching it.
As long as
it's saved probably another 2 seasons, but who knows beyond that if it keeps going down.
It really comes down to as long as advertisers are willing to pay the money to be there also.
Right.
And that's really, the ratings and the advertisers. That's what it'll come down to. And that'll determine how long, if it's on life support or not, The Walking Dead. So,
exactly. People have been asking us about our thoughts on The Walking Dead, so we got into that.
We did pretty deep. The next story is really strange.
Oh my God. Super bizarre, weird, crazy go nuts. Okay. We have an image of a larger young woman in a wedding dress.
I thought it was a guy at first in the wedding dress. I really did.
I did too.
I apologize.
I did for a moment as well.
Looks like Big Vito, a guy I used to know, big Italian guy.
Imposing figure, shall we say. And she, because she is a she, is a young woman. She's only like 21, 22. She married a 4-foot-tall zombie doll. Married.
What? You said, did you say married?
Married, as in wedding ceremony.
Like nuptials happen between this woman and a doll.
A zombie doll.
And what country did this happen in?
Well, I thought it was the U.S.
Oh, my good Lord.
Let me check. Just to make sure. So we have a number of enticing images in the article, which is on iHorror. We have
I'm looking there as well, and
that's quite in room.
Oh my good Lord!
We have the bride and groom, and her name is Felicity. And by the way, the doll is also female.
And the wedding party are all zombie dolls.
Yes, she is from Massachusetts, so this happened right here in the good old USA. She's 21, and her doll is named Kelly Rossi, whom Felicity says is nearly 40 years old.
Wow, the zombie doll is robbing the cradle.
Yes, and interestingly, their May-December romance, although I wouldn't call 40 December. If he was 80 or she was 80, that would be December. Anyway, they're mismatched, shall we say, romance started online through a creepy doll website.
Yeah. What? So the doll. Oh.
3 years later, she started to have romantic feelings for the doll.
I just love you so much. I especially love the way you never talk, but when you do, you want to bite me.
Or do anything.
At all.
It's so bizarre. And she has other dolls, and they attended, of course.
Well, yeah, you got to have the wedding party. I mean, that would be the step siblings now, right? I mean, that would be, the step kids, rather. Not siblings, it'd be step children. This doll has children now.
Here is a quote from the young lady. I made sure that the whole wedding was done properly, so it would be as official as possible. And get this, Eric added as an aside, and we consummated the wedding afterwards. Man, I don't even want to think about that.
Oh, I don't know who to feel bad for, the doll or her at that point with that one. Wow. That's a shocking story. I always found it really creepy, and this is creepier now. Then the people that order those dolls are so lifelike that they can take care of and cuddle. They're like called cuddlies or whatever. You've seen them, right?
Yes.
I always found that to be super uber creepy. This is creepier.
This is about as creepy as it gets. What?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just really honestly, without derision or pejorative thoughts, I'm just trying to envision what any and all of this means.
Why?
What does she mean they consummated the marriage? What the hell does that mean?
And how would you go about getting a marriage license for an inanimate object that cannot sign its own signature?
I'm guessing there was no wedding license.
I'm going. Yeah, it's obviously a sham wedding. It has to be. But could you imagine? Wow, man, you could truly marry anything now, I guess.
I'm almost certain the state did not sanction, nor certainly did any other religion sanction this union. But she did her best, and there you go.
Yeah, she looks awfully happy with her zombie doll. He does not look as happy as I would have thought a groom should.
Because, he's a zombie.
Well, it's a she, though. The doll's a she, though,
a
right?
she.
Yeah,
yes,
it is a she. Never mind. She does not look all that happy to be marrying Big Vito.
She indicates that she being the bride indicates that the doll wore a tuxedo because he is the male in their relationship.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Even though she's a she.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Whatever that means in doll form.
Yeah. I've heard that before, but dealing with
humans perhaps.
Human cohabitations.
It is truly bizarre.
It is a strange set of circumstances. What would you do if you had a daughter? I'm presuming she has parents. What would you do if your daughter came home and said, I'm going to get married? Oh, really? Great. What's he or she's name? Well, it's a doll. I mean, how would you react to that?
I can't even imagine such a thing. I mean, I don't know what I would say. I would say perhaps we need to double up on the therapy. Maybe triple up.
Have you met my friend Thorazine?
By the way, forgive my stuffed up nose. While I'm getting better day by day, and I think I went 2 full days with no emotional outburst. All of a sudden, I was on the phone earlier today. Oh my God. The torrential outburst, the worst in the last several days. It was very upsetting.
Yeah, it comes in waves.
I'm stuffed up. I'm stuffed up. And I apologize.
Everyone that's just tuning in, by the way, if you didn't catch last night's show, Eric lost his beloved mother last week, and that's why we were not on the air for anyone that's just tuning in and wondering where we were last week. So again, condolences, Eric, and to you and your family.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's hard. We We talked about it quite a bit last night, so I won't get into a lot of detail. But I mean, her time had come. It's still very, very, very sad. It's not a tragedy. She lived a very, very full life. She was almost 87. She had suffered, several major medical blows, so it was time. But of course, we still miss her terribly, and always will. So anyway, moving along. Speaking of reboots, which we weren't, but now we are.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Speaking of,
and it's not even really a reboot. It's turning a beloved film into a TV series.
Oh no!
The CW.
Oh God.
Is doing The Lost Boys.
Okay, now, not only is it a reboot, but now we got to do a TV series. How are they even thinking this is going to work?
I'm not sure.
They never work.
I don't know how fleshed out this is, so to speak.
They never work, though. When you're taking an iconic movie from the 1980s, right, that most everybody
Absolute
loved.
Yeah,
a classic,
really great.
Classic movie. And you're going to take it and turn it into a TV series and water it down for cable. Oh, well,
right.
I don't see any
well, you're right.
disaster
It's
there at
TV.
all.
It's not even cable. It's TV. You're right. It's on CW. It's a network show.
Yeah. Well, lower end of the spectrum of network. We're giving them way too much credit.
The lowest end of the network spectrum, but it's it's a network. It's the fifth network. So, I don't know. I don't know what to think. You never know. I mean, maybe it'll be, if they'll capture something of the spirit of it. Maybe they won't.
I'm going to go on a limb and say they won't. I could be wrong. I could be pleasantly surprised, and they might absolutely blow everyone's doors off and have a great show. But chances are I'm not going to be too worried about that one.
We shall see. But the casting is now more or less complete for the pilot, anyway, for this series. So that's a story over on Deadline. You can go check that out. And rather than use, they had a bunch of pictures of the cast, none of whom I even recognized, basically. So, of course, we used an image from the original film, being so iconic. Now I can say, speaking of reboots, have you seen the new trailer? And if you click through,
I did.
To the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
From Jordan Peele.
Problem is, though, you got to get CBS All Access.
Yes.
Do I really want to boot over another $10 a month for yet another streaming service?
Didn't you say, though, you're a big Star Trek fan?
I am to some extent, but not enough to pay the $10 a month because it's all over the place like on Amazon. You know what I mean? The original 1960s.
Oh, no, this is a new series. There's a new series.
I know there is. And I just don't know.
You don't care.
I just don't know if I care enough to want to pay the money. See, that's the thing. Right now, for me personally, I have Netflix, like everybody on the planet pretty much. I have Amazon, and so if you're a Prime member, you automatically have that. And I have Hulu. I mean, I have 3 streaming services already. Why do I need more?
We do too. We what we do with Hulu is when there's something specific we want to see, we sign up again.
See, I keep it all the time.
And get it free for a month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I keep it, and then mainly because the kids watch their cartoons. It's great for TV shows, Hulu, and that's always been what they're good at is TV. And so, of course, the kids love that because they get to see their shows, their cartoons that they're missing, when not having cable and the Sling. Oh yeah, we also have Sling, so that's yet another streaming service we have. And so, we're pretty well fleshed out on that part, man. We got more streaming services than
that's a lot of streaming. And, we're going to get to the point where we're going to want to see those services consolidated, we're not going to want to have to pay for each one of those separately.
Now, this begs the question now, does this mean that cable's dead?
I don't know that it's dead, but it is certainly being impeded. There's no question. It is, they're bleeding. Cable is bleeding customers because people are cutting the cord, just like you have done. And they're going with Sling for like local TV and whatnot. What do you get on Sling exactly?
Basically, oh gosh, I get everything from Discovery to History to you name it. It's basically a cable package pared down. See, you can kind of pick and choose your own channels of Sling. You're not stuck with these huge news packages that you're never going to watch.
Do you pay by the channel, or is it in like tiers?
No, like it goes on tiers, but the tiers, they're basically taking the tiers and cherry pick the most popular channels from cable and put them in the tiers.
And then you get local TV too, right?
No, that you still have to have an antenna for. See, that's the only thing I have the antenna.
I thought Sling did do that.
Not yet, but now, of course, most of your local TV carriers, especially if you're anywhere near a major city, they're streaming their news now for the locals. So, I mean, but basically, I got to say, I'm never going to go back to cable. Sling has everything. I watch The Walking Dead and you name it, just like watching cable. But it's only $25 a month.
How do you get network TV?
You can get that in one of their packages
From Sling?
Yeah, if you want to get the network packages, you can.
Okay.
You know, you can step up and get ABC.
But
and
you
NBC.
don't do that.
No, because I could care less about network TV. I don't watch it. That's the problem. I just don't watch
We don't watch
enough
much
of it.
anymore.
You know,
we don't watch much.
I just don't find myself really caring about, This Is Us. Really? Because this is me, so get the hell out of here.
We only watch a handful of shows.
Yeah. So I just don't watch that much TV to begin with, and when I do, it's mainly movies. I watch a lot of movies, a lot of YouTube. I get caught in the YouTube black hole.
Ooh.
Where you start with one
video. The Kids.
Exactly, and then it like connects to another one and another one, and next thing you know, you've been on it for 5 hours.
Do you follow any of the YouTubers?
No, not well. Yeah, I do subscribe to a bunch of channels. Top 5 Creepy, that's a really good one. Creepiest videos, scariest channel on YouTube, they claim, and that is where I get a lot of our paranormal stuff from.
Oh ho!
Yeah, some of the news clips and stuff like that because they cover all the paranormal news.
Isn't YouTube either now or soon will do some sort of streaming in terms of TV?
Yeah, they already are, but it's really not taking off, I guess, the way that they were hoping. Sling is going to be a hard one to beat because they had such a big head start, and they really have it locked up. You have Sling and you have Sony, are the two big streaming networks right now. And so they're having a little bit of a harder time. I know Hulu also offers a streaming option as well.
Very interesting. All right. Well, I guess we got time, or do we? No, we don't.
We got
really.
less than a minute. We got to get out of here, man. When we come back, we're going to be talking about all things creepy, Bigfoot, terror from the sky, Seth Breedlove, small town monsters. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. Set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And tonight, Eric, man, we have one of our good buds on. We had him on a year exactly tomorrow. So,
wow.
I was looking at the old, going back in the old shows, and we had him on exactly about a year ago.
Yes, we did. And so prolific is he that he's put out, I guess 2 since then, and has 3 more in the can that we will be talking about this very evening.
Actually, I mean, if it was a year ago, right around this time, we would have put out the Flatwoods Monster on April 6th. We put out Bray Road Beast on October 5th, but in between, we also put out Champ. So that's 3 right there.
Yeah,
but damn,
and yeah, it's ridiculous.
You're kind of busy.
I gotta stop. I gotta stop myself.
Tasmanian devil whirling about the countryside here in Northeast Ohio. All right, we're going to talk about what is going on. First of the 3 new projects, or semi-new projects currently to be completed, is Terror in the Skies. Illinois may be the land of Lincoln, but in the new film, Terror in the Skies, award-winning production company Small Town Monsters and director Seth Breedlove prove it's also something much stranger, exploring hundreds of years of terrifying reports of encounters with massive winged creatures from around the state. From Alton's man-eating piazza bird legends to recent sightings of a red-eyed, shapeless creature dubbed Chicago Mothman, Terror in the Skies explores a century-old mystery. The film was shot around the state of Illinois in September 2018 and acts as much as a guide to the constantly changing terrain of the land as it does an introduction to the reality-altering subject. Breedlove contacted numerous witnesses and investigators who claim to have seen massive beings in the sky as recently as last year. And there's much, much more. Head on over for a very thorough description of the film to America's-most-haunted.com and check out the article. Of course, you can hear the show live there or the recorded version. And all this information is also absolutely available on the Small Town Monsters site and on their Kickstarter page, which we should mention. Very, very important. It launched Thursday, February 7th, runs through March 9th. Kickstarter for all 3 projects, Terror in the Skies, Momo, the Missouri Monster, and On the Trail of Bigfoot, all of which I believe, anyway, have been shot and just need to be finished up and get some people paid. Moving along on the trail of Bigfoot, a new documentary miniseries promises to change the way you view the Bigfoot phenomena when it is released in March. The series director The very same Seth Breedlove grew up in Bolivar, Ohio, right not far from me at all, and used his hometown as a central location in the project, which, in addition to Northeast Ohio, was also shot in California, Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, South Carolina, New York, 14 states in all. The series tracks the history of the Bigfoot subject while also telling Seth's personal story, tracing how he went from ardent skeptic to truly believing there could be a real, undiscovered creature lurking in North American forests, featuring 21 Bigfoot enthusiasts, investigators, skeptics, and believers. On the Trail of Bigfoot is told in 6 episodes and is already being hailed as the definitive documentary on the subject. You will be able to see On the Trail of Bigfoot at the Canton Palace Theater on Friday, March 29th. 4 of the 6 episodes will be shown. We'll also be playing at a film festival in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and at the Kent Stage back here in Northeast Ohio, in Kent, Ohio, in April. Digital premiere will be all over the place, as well as DVD on March 29th. What is Small Town Monsters, you may ask? Small Town Monsters began as an independent film series exploring lost and bizarre history around the United States, focusing on small town folklore. Our team tells stories through the words and experiences of those who were most affected by them, residents and witnesses. Among the films, as Seth mentioned a bit earlier, that they have put out in under 5 years, 4 years, I guess, Minerva Monster, Beast of Whitehall, Boggy Creek Monster, The Mothman of Point Pleasant, Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, The Flatwoods Monster, Legacy of Fear, On the Trail of Champ, Bray Road Beast, and forthcoming On the Trail of Bigfoot, Terror in the Skies, and Momo, all coming this year. A little bit about Seth, we haven't already said. He's a filmmaker best known, obviously, for the production company, the films they produced under the Small Town Monsters banner. Before film, Seth wrote for a number of websites, newspapers, and magazines, and learned some of the skills he employs as a director while working as a reporter. Seth also has appeared on numerous television and radio programs, and he began this whole shebang back in 2013, working on a concept for a series entitled Small Town Monsters. The first film that he directed and edited on his own was Boggy Creek Monster, and he's just exploded in filmic ways ever since. Welcome to the program, Seth Breedlove.
That was incredible.
Right?
Really, I could just sit here for the rest of the show and let you talk about us, and that'll make my job a lot easier.
Right?
And there's much to say, by golly.
Well, good night, everybody. We covered everything. Seth, thanks for stopping by. No, but Seth, what got you into Bigfoot? I mean, what was the thing that he mentioned that you're kind of becoming more of a believer than a skeptic? Is there something that happened?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's kind of two questions there. The thing that got me into Bigfoot is the I grew up in Bolivar, as that press release mentioned. And in Bolivar, there was a kind of a very isolated section of town where it was formerly strip mine land. It was like acres and acres of formerly strip mine land that was privately owned. And there were a couple roads crisscrossing it. One of them was called St. Peter's Church Road. There was a this is the abbreviated version of the story, by the way, but there was a family that lived on that road that I had a mutual friend through, and they were telling this mutual friend about the Bigfoot family that they were seeing on their property, going into and out of the strip mine land. And I got really curious about that and started driving those back roads. And at one point I came across a couple who lived back there, and I had a conversation with them about whether or not they had ever seen, a creature for themselves on their property. And they were telling me that during the 1970s, there was actually a rash of sightings all along that area, where local farmers and people that lived back there were claiming they were seeing these things. And these were not widely reported. It was neighbors telling other neighbors about what they were seeing. They told me around that same time that these sightings were going on. People were finding mutilated animals, ripped in half, sometimes the hides ripped off, and stuffed up in trees. And they told me what was interesting about me asking them about this at this particular time is that they had actually just recently found deer or some sort of livestock ripped in half and stuffed up in a tree on their property.
Wow.
So I thought that was really unusual. I mean,
that is unusual behavior.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not normal.
Ripping and stuffing.
Well, mountain lions can store their kills, so I did keep that in mind. And obviously, we're not supposed to have mountain lions here in Ohio, but nonetheless, that is an animal that can do that. But obviously, the other thing would be like a human. But why on earth would someone do such a thing? So anyway, like that was what kicked it off for me. I just started talking to people about, like there were unusual animal sightings and Bigfoot sightings, and that was what kicked it off for me. But I've been doing this for, I've been talking to witnesses, and I've been looking into the subject for about probably like 12 years now. And I think after a certain period of time, especially one as extended as that, without seeing or experiencing anything for yourself, like a certain amount of skepticism is going to start to creep in. And, like when I first got into this, I was totally open to it. I basically took everything everyone said at face value and believed that there was probably a Bigfoot. But over time, I think I had gotten to around like 30%, like as to these things existing.
Would you call yourself a skeptical believer?
I just hate using the word believer, period. It just doesn't, I've always had a problem with that particular word. So I was skeptical, but I wanted them. I want it to be real, but after you don't experience something for yourself for so long. And then last year during the making of On the Trail of Bigfoot, we, I had some experiences in the Ouachita Mountains in Oklahoma that moved the needle for me enough to where I am now much more open to these things existing.
Yeah, way more up to the possibility of they might just be out there. That's something that I have been out like in the Pacific Northwest, and if you've never been out there, it is so dense that I think that's what some people that have not been out there just can't wrap their mind around, how dense of a forest that truly is. You can be 10 feet off the road and be completely concealed.
Yeah, I mean, like the area where we were at in the Ouachita Mountains was so, and I did go to the Pacific Northwest, but actually, like the most isolated place I went to was in Oklahoma. We were 2.5 hours back this dirt gravel road down the side of a mountain in this valley. And it was 9 miles off any paved road, but it took 2.5 hours to travel back this road. And there's no one back in there. Like the animals aren't used to seeing people. They'll wander right into your camp and right up to you because they don't, they don't see people back in there. And there are a lot of places like that throughout the United States, despite what, a lot of people think about the encroachment of logging and things like that. And that's a legit issue, but there are still very isolated, wilderness areas where people don't go. And obviously if you can get out there, I think that there's like a really great line toward the end of the final episode that my friend Adam says about how there's something about going out into the woods for yourself that will at the least open your mind to the possibility of these things existing. It's really easy to sit in your house and say nothing, there's no Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But you go out into the woods, especially after dark, and your perception of reality shifts a little bit, and there are plenty of places, even here in Northeast Ohio, where something could stay hidden in the forest, for a very long time. Like I said, like one really interesting thing about that Bolivar flap of sightings that happened in the 70s is, I mean, that land, it's much more developed now today. They sold a lot of the property off in recent years, and it's getting more and more developed. But in the 70s, that area back there was completely, no one went back there. It was all barbed wire, and it was more than a couple. I mean, it was a few thousand acres of this, private property that people couldn't go on. And who knows what's back there. And that kind of thing exists. There's little pockets of wilderness all over the United States like that.
Yeah. I live near the Great Lakes in northern Minnesota. We have a lot of that kind of wilderness up here.
Oh yeah, and northern Minnesota is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That's right where I live. And I go out with a group. I belong to a group of Bigfooters because I believe I've been out there because, of course, I made the foolish statement of saying I don't believe in a Bigfoot. And of course, they said, well, have you ever been looking? Well, no, but I am a deer hunter, and I would have thought I would have come across one by now with all the time in the woods. And I went out with them, and they changed my mind. There were some strange things. Being a lifelong woodsman and knowing the animals around me from being a hunter and growing up in the wilderness that I couldn't explain that were going on around me.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Like you almost too. I mean, like if you've been out in some of those areas, you probably know this. But like the thing for me that really came to the forefront when I went into to that kind of terrain was that you actually. I'm used to Ohio, where you kind of turn your senses up because you want to hear things, and you're like in a place like the Watchtoes, you actually have to turn it off because otherwise everything becomes Bigfoot, because there's so much that you've never experienced and so much going on that you really have to be skeptical of everything you're seeing and hearing, or else you become one of those people where every time they go out in the woods, you're having 30 Bigfoot sightings and you're, telepathically communicating with them.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Free knock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because when you've been to a place that really no one's gone before. A woodsman told me, old logger told me this. It says the squirrels don't chatter.
Yeah. Oh, that's the weirdest thing about I'm going to keep coming back to the Watchtoe Mountains, by the way, because like that is kind of the seminal moment of my last year, as far as like the Bigfoot
experience.
Yeah, exactly. Like that place. One of the creepiest, most unnerving things about that place is I'm used to being in the woods in the Pacific Northwest or here, where there's a lot of bird calls and there's squirrels and there's all that kind of stuff. There's very little noise.
It's almost like being in a vacuum where you just I get that.
It's like a black hole of forest and it was really unnerving. Even at night, like there's insect noise and I think the last night actually was pretty loud in there. But I know on our first night in there, it was quiet as could be, and that was very, very unsettling because you're aware of all the activity that's taken place in that location over the years, and you're just laying there waiting for like some ear piercing like Ohio howl or something to erupt at any second. And instead you're just listening to nothing, stillness.
Did you guys have to hike in there on foot, or did you utilize ATV or vehicle to get back there?
No, I mean it took 2.5 hours, but we were in a 4-wheel drive pickup truck. But the truck was, I mean, he was coasting with his foot on the brake down this mountain most of the way. And it's like by the time we actually had to take a break about halfway down the mountain because it really like gets stressful. It's almost all the guys that go in there, they have jacked up, like really nice trucks, nice 4-wheel drive, but. Even doing that, he still scraped the bottom of his truck twice on the drive down in. So it's no joke. Like I talked to there's a British Special Forces member that's actually a member of that group. And he told me the only road that he's seen that compared to that one in terms of like ruggedness was a road that he traveled in the Congo. So, I mean,
that's saying something.
It's no joke. It's a very rugged, isolated place.
So, Seth, what led you to endeavor on this Bigfoot trek across the nation, basically solo? As I understand it, you did everything yourself. This was a solo filmmaking project. What led to that decision?
Well, I mean, a big part of that is actually because of Alexander Petakov's On the Trail of Champ. He was when we did the On the Trail of Champ miniseries last year, I just produced it. We wanted to work with Alex on something, and that was the project he wanted to do. And originally, he had a whole crew lined up. He was going to go into the woods with these guys. They were going to make this miniseries together. It was a typical indie film crew situation. And then on the day he was supposed to leave, everyone bailed on him. So he ended up going in alone and made that whole entire miniseries by himself. And, that really inspired me as far as like wanting to make this. So this was going to be my stab at a solo filmmaking experience. But the big difference between what I did and what Alex did is Alex luckily only had to travel to like one location, or at least one geographical location in with Lake Champlain, and I traveled to at least 14 different states, and just decided to do the whole thing myself. Now there were a few scenes that were shot by other people because I was actually on camera, obviously, so I wasn't shooting those. But for the most part, I shot I'd say 90% of the footage that's in the series. I'd say at least 90% of it is me holding the camera or something.
That's ambitious as all hell, Seth.
How did you plot your course? I mean, did you plan it all out in advance, or did you just kind of follow?
No, I mean,
your muse.
This goes all the way back to when I wrote for newspapers here in Ohio. Like, I've never been good about like outlining, doing story outlines or any of that stuff. We're actually working on the Momo movie right now, like the pre-production side of it. And I've actually had to like script out the whole movie. And that has been the hardest thing for me because I hate following an outline or guidelines. I like to just go film. I usually have a rough story outline, but that's it. And with On the Trail of Bigfoot, all I had was a 10 episode guide. So originally the series was going to be 10 episodes, and it probably could have very easily been 10 episodes, except I don't have the time or the money to continue doing it. So maybe we can revisit it at some point. But so I had this guideline, that I followed, and that at least steered me in the right direction when I was asking questions. But the entire series comes together, story-wise in post-production when I sat down to edit it. And this was supposed to be a quick edit for me. I really got into fully editing this around very early October, and I just wrapped. As far as like sound and all that, I just sent it off to the press yesterday. So it was not the quick like 6 to 8 week turnaround that I was expecting. It turned out to be a lot more difficult, and every episode got re-edited multiple times. I was never supposed to actually appear on camera in the series. All that came together much later, and there's actually a very early cut of episode 1 where I'm not on camera. I solely am narrating it, and if I had my druthers, that's the way I would have kept it too, because I don't want to sit there and edit myself every day when I'm looking at my own face.
Look, it's me again.
Yeah.
I kind of know the feeling working in radio, hearing your own voice editing.
Yeah. So it really came together, it came together in the edit. And I find that is the case with a lot of our projects. There's been very few where I had the whole thing figured out going into it. Usually if I do that, nothing goes the way I expected it to, and it all gets overturned.
At any point, though, during your experience, when you're out in the woods, when you're boots on the ground, were you ever a little fearful? I mean, everyone gets there. I was there when they took me out. At one point, we were in the middle of the night sleeping, and there was some strange howls where we were. We were in Reamer, Minnesota, where we were, and they were the self-proclaimed home of Bigfoot. And they had just had a sighting the day before, and there was some actual fresh tracks and stuff like that going on, and it was around this lake, and I was not expecting to hear anything. I thought for sure someone was pulling my leg, and they're out doing whatever, and whatever. But at night, you're sitting there in the tent, and you hear the just like that, and across the lake, and you've never heard nothing like that before. That scared me a little bit, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds really big and really close.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple times where it was a little unnerving. I think when I was in the Watchtows, it was scary, but it wasn't like scary because of. First of all, I had a camera in my hand, and for some reason I become fearless if I have a camera in my hand. So it wasn't as terrifying as it might have been if I was just hanging out in there. I didn't, the night that we experienced something throwing a rock at a metal outbuilding and then screaming from the side of this mountain above us. I didn't feel fear that night, though. It was more excitement. I was thrilled to actually be experiencing something. So that wasn't it. But when I was in there, the thing that kept getting to me was how I kept thinking if something happens, like you get bit by a rattlesnake or something. Yeah. Now we had a paramedic in there with us, so it wasn't as scary, and they have first aid and all that stuff. So I'm sure I would have been fine. But you're still thinking, man, if something happens, you're 2.5 hours from a hospital, at least. So the odds of making it out are slim. So that was a little unnerving, but weirdly enough, the other time that I was kind of terrified, it had nothing to do with Bigfoot. We were in Adams County, Ohio, and we were up on the side of this mountain in one of the darkest places I've ever been. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face after dark in this place. And we were up on the side of this mountain. The guys we were with were doing calling, trying to get something to howl back at us. Sure. They were doing calls and all that. And one of the guys did this call, and it got picked up by coyotes. And the coyotes started echoing it back, like yelling back. And it was the creepiest thing I've ever heard. It rimmed around the valley. Like they all started picking it up from spot to spot. And this went on for over a minute.
Wow.
So you're hearing what sounded like hundreds of coyotes. I don't know how many it was, but it was more than a couple packs. It was coyote all over this valley picking us up. And and what was scary was like as it continued moving, you were hearing it getting closer. I was like, that sounds like they're coming. Like it sounded like they were on their way toward us or something.
Yeah.
And so that was a weird thing, just because I'd never experienced anything like that out in the woods before, and we were in a location that was so dark. It was almost as dark as the Ouachita Mountains. It was pitch black, and that's saying something because this was mid-December here in Ohio, so all the leaf canopy's down. So it was that dark without the leaf canopy, which means with the leaf canopy, it's got to be insane.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real dark. I've been in some real dark woods, like I said, up here in Minnesota as well, and it's especially that fall time. There's something about that fall time where it's that dark without the canopy present that gives it that much more of an eerie feel too when you're out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's things are carrying farther because the lack of foliage not at that point, or what it is, but it just seems to have that echo factor.
Yeah. It's a creepy thing. I'd never experienced anything like that, and to have it happening here in Ohio, where I kind of grew up, is weird too, because you expect that, in somewhere like the PNW or maybe even like the Adirondacks, but to have it happening here in Ohio is really weird. I mean, that's one aspect of this probably, is that it did open my eyes to how much wilderness there still is, within the United States.
And at night, as you were talking, I was just thinking, I mean, I'm in Northeast Ohio. We're in suburban Cleveland. So, even more suburban, I think, than you are, at least where you grew up. And, it's mostly converted farms, but there's still plenty of woods. In our backyard, there's a lot of woods, and it's kind of contiguous all the way back to Tinker's Creek, back into Twinsburg. So there's quite a uninterrupted area of streams and woods. And if it's nighttime and you go out there, I mean, you don't have to go more than 20, 30 feet into the woods, and you could be anywhere. It feels like wilderness, even though I'm, if I turn around, I can see my back door. And so to be truly out in remote areas under those conditions, there's so many Americans who just don't know that feeling. There's so many urban Americans in particular, and suburban, who just don't know what that feels like, and they don't understand the primal feeling of being in the woods, especially in the dark, and a feeling that goes back, to literally the dawn of man. And it's a way we can relate to our much more primitive selves. So even if you don't find anything out there, it's still a really intense primal experience.
Yeah, I've actually, Twinsburg is not Twinsburg. I'm in Wadsworth, so Twinsburg's like 30 minutes from me. But I've actually gone into some of the woods there with some Bigfoot people, because they claim to have had an experience in there before. And we had a wood knock while we were in there, but there's so much suburbia surrounding it. I was really skeptical as to what we were actually hearing, especially because it was broad daylight. But you're right. Like there's these pockets of forest all over the place, especially here in Ohio, because this was a place that at one time was heavily forested. I mean, if you take a look at like the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and then you kind of imagine what the state would have looked like prior to settlement. I mean, it was all like that. It was all like that really dense forested area.
All big
there.
timber. Yeah, exactly. We got to get out of here, take a break. We got more Seth Breedlove and more Small Town Monsters and more On the Trail of Bigfoot. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
And she's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
What do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torrin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. Got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torrin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And tonight we're talking with Seth Breedlove, and he is the filmmaker and the owner, proprietor, and the brains behind Small Town Monsters. And he made a great new film that's getting ready to drop, On the Trail of Bigfoot. Keep an eye out for that. But I know, Eric, during the break, you had a great... we're going to definitely shift into this story because we covered it extensively.
Yes, absolutely. I'm fascinated to hear about Terror in the Skies, which is also, and of course, we got to mention your Kickstarter because all the editing and the post-production, finishing up 3 films. I guess we call On Trail of Bigfoot is actually a series, but that's a series. And then Terror in the Skies is a film, and then Momo, the Monster of Missouri, is a film as well. So all of those are included under a single Kickstarter. So before we do anything else, you should let people know about that. I noticed you're way past your goal, and you've been very, very successful using that venue. So let people know about it. Let's bump up those numbers as high as we can.
Yeah. If you go to Kickstarter.com and then just put in like Momo or Terror in the Skies or Small Town Monsters in the search bar, that's the easiest way to find it. Otherwise, you can go to like our Facebook page and we have the links on there. But the Kickstarter is how we fund the production of everything we do each year. So we put on a Kickstarter at the start of every year, and usually like late January, early February, and then that funds all production costs associated with those projects that we're putting out that year. And backers can get their like names in the credits of the film, or t-shirts and hats and DVDs, posters, all that kind of stuff. Because of the fact that this campaign went over its goal within the first 15 hours, we've already added 3 stretch goals. So we announced like a new goal each time we hit a stretch goal, and with the new goal comes a new reward, like a free reward. So basically we just keep adding rewards so people get more and more free stuff on top of what they already got, for their initial pledge. So we added, let me think. The first thing was a Momo the Missouri Monster crew member t-shirt. So we had this Momo t-shirt as part of the Kickstarter, but now it says crew member on the back, Small Time Monsters crew member.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool. And then we're adding a 3-hour long on the Trail of Bigfoot commentary track that I'll be recording live that like people can tune into, or they can just get the downloadable version and watch it with the miniseries when the miniseries comes out. And then let's see what else. We just added another thing. Oh, the DVD slipcase for Terror in the Skies with exclusive artwork signed by the crew. And now the goal we're trying to hit is 60K. And with that is going to be a free Terror in the Skies t-shirt. So like we keep adding more stuff just because we keep hitting all these stretch goals. So it's pretty exciting.
How sad for you.
Yeah,
it's terrifying.
Look at the support you have.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that speaks to the quality and the passion that goes into your filmmaking. People
and the community.
More. Yeah,
exactly. That's the point. Is like people are basically paying to get the type of content they would want out of like network television because it just doesn't exist there.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And if you want the real story, the real stuff, you got to turn to outlets like yourself that aren't afraid to go there.
Yeah, the indie avenue seems to be the best way to go because a lot of the filmmakers are guys that have an actual passion for the subjects and they know what they're doing and that's they're creating content that they would want to watch.
Yeah, they're not doing it for a payday; they're doing it out of love. Payday is a side benefit. Yeah, exactly. We're getting there right now, Eric.
Terror
go ahead.
In the sky.
Go ahead, Eric.
All right, so tell us about Terror in the Skies. I am fascinated with this Chicago Mothman, all these sightings. You get all these really specific, detailed, sightings and see them on a map and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty amazing. What did you find out? And I'd love to hear a little bit about the history of it. Sounds like this has been going on for centuries.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very different film from a typical STM production. It's almost like an anthology. There's multiple stories. It's similar in some ways to our Invasion on Chestnut Ridge film, but it's gonna like take you through the entire history of Illinois' winged cryptid phenomena, I guess. Starting with the Piasaw bird in Alton, Illinois, which was this outside of Alton, Illinois, there's this mural that was painted on a cliff and they've repainted it. It's not the original mural, obviously, but there was an original mural that was painted by Native Americans of this winged monstrosity that supposedly ate men and lived on one of the cliffs in a cave. And, like in the 1940s, there was a rash of Thunderbird sightings in Alton, Illinois. We cover that. And in fact, like I was buckled down today working on that sequence. And I actually learned a lot of stuff about it, that I had never really realized, like the fact that it was basically a 4 or 5 week long flap of Thunderbird sightings that took place not just in Alton, Illinois, but also in St. Louis, like downtown St. Louis. People were seeing these giant birds, and it got so out of control that the Civil Air Command offered to do air patrols to try to shoot these birds down.
Wow!
So that
they meant really business.
Yeah, like this was crazy. There were tons of sightings that erupted all over that area, and for whatever reason, the state of Illinois tends to have flaps, no pun intended, of like winged cryptids. And sometimes there's like decades that separate them, but when they come, it's not like 1 or 2 sightings; it's multiple sightings by people all over an area, and then they just stop. So, it started in the 1940s with that Thunderbird flap, and then there was another flap in the 1970s near a town called Lawndale, which is right outside of Lincoln, Illinois. And that particular wave of sightings has one of the most infamous Thunderbird accounts, which was when a young boy named Marlon Lowe was actually supposedly picked up by a Thunderbird and it attempted to carry him off. Something we found out during the making of the project was that actually is something that's happened before. There was a sighting or an account of a young boy being carried off by a Thunderbird in the late 1800s from a Missouri schoolyard, actually not far from Alton, Illinois. So anyway, we go from Alton to Lawndale, and then we interviewed two more recent witnesses of like winged cryptids. One of them was more of like a humanoid, a little bit of a humanoid description that he gave us, and then the other was sort of a pterodactyl looking creature, like a winged feathered pterodactyl. Really bizarre, but a 20-foot wingspan. And this guy that we interviewed is an outdoorsman. In fact, like he works as a salesman for one of the largest outdoors supplier, like outdoor hunting and fishing supply companies. So he knows his stuff. We went to his house. He owns like 700 acres or something. And this guy isn't, he's out in the woods all the time, and he'd never seen what he saw before. And he had a friend with him, and they both described the exact same thing. So, and that kind of takes you up to chapter 3, and then chapter 3 of the film will focus heavily on the aforementioned Chicago Mothman flap, which, kind of kicked off a couple years ago. Lon Strickler obviously heavily reported on the events that were unfolding in Chicago when people started seeing this sort of winged creature that some descriptions tended to tie to the Point Pleasant Mothman of the 1960s. And, like that's a really interesting part of the movie for sure. And it takes up the better part of the final third of the movie. But, by the time you get to it, it should be cemented in your head that like this is nothing new. Like for there to be people seeing a giant, bizarre creature in the skies of Illinois has been going on all the way back to, the Native Americans, and they don't all have the same description. There's something about Illinois that is calling in a host of bizarre, winged cryptids.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
What's your final word, since you've delved so deeply and in multifarious locations? What is your take on Mothman? What the hell is Mothman, and what's the relationship? Is this really Mothman in Chicago? Is there more than one Mothman? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What is Mothman in your estimation?
I mean, the Chicago, what's going on in the Chicago, first of all, it isn't just Chicago, obviously. It's kind of all around the Great Lakes. And I, like calling it the Chicago Mothman is a little disingenuous, but I guess that is kind of where the sightings kicked off. So that's how I got that moniker. And it works for us because we're trying to focus strictly on Illinois. So, but as far as what it is, I don't think it's connected to the Point Pleasant Mothman sightings at all. The physical descriptions of this thing don't even really sound all that similar to the Chicago Mothman or to the Point Pleasant Mothman. You don't have some of the other bizarre phenomena that were taking place in 66 and 67 that accompanied those sightings. So there's a lot of things there that I just don't think line up. It's cool to me that the Mothman has become such a pop cultural icon that people want there to be another Mothman.
Yeah, it's like they're almost willing one to come along.
Yeah,
but that would mean a collapse of another bridge, and we don't necessarily need that.
Sure, yeah, So I mean, I just don't see a lot of similarities between the two, especially when you get into those physical descriptions. And we spoke with Tobias Wayland, who runs the Singular 14 website, and he had some really interesting theories about like possibly misidentification of known large birds, like sandhill cranes and things like that. He talked at length about how the environment has affected the migration habits of some of the birds, and some of them are tending to fly more into those really populated areas where they would have, previously stayed out of, which could describe some of the sightings, or not describe, but could explain some of the sightings that are taking place in places where it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because there have been sightings in very heavily populated locations
Sure.
in Chicago, and so that was really interesting to me. There's also a number of witnesses, or not witnesses, but investigators we interviewed who just think the whole thing's made up. So there's, there's a lot, there's a lot of infighting over this Chicago Mothman flap. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but that we became quickly aware of the fact that many investigators that are looking into this did not get along and did not see eye to eye as far as what is actually going on that's causing it.
I heard that on the side that there was some, warring between the factions, as it were, about what's going on. Yeah, there always is. That's just nature of the beast, so to speak. With any facet of the paranormal, it seems that you're always going to have that little bit of a rub. But yeah, I'd like to see more information come out exactly what it was and why it's going on. I mean, it's still an unsolved case as far as I'm aware. There's been no definitive answer what that was above the skies of Chicago.
Yeah, no, I mean, no one knows. There's any number of theories about it, but for the most part, it seems to be some people. The other thing that's interesting is I have a friend that actually moved to Chicago, and this is kind of humorous, but she's a folklorist, and she moved there specifically because she was doing her dissertation on the Chicago Mothman, and she interviewed a witness who had a sighting of the Chicago, the Chicago Phantom, Chicago Mothman actually exiting like a portal in the sky.
Wow.
So it's really unusual because most of the sightings don't involve that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She also had talked to someone who claimed they'd seen it go into a UFO. So she's apparently managed to get the more high strangeness centered Chicago Mothman.
Well, if you're gonna aim for
stories.
strange, you might as well go as high as you can,
touching all the paranormal bases.
Yeah, right. Well, was one more case I really enjoyed watching, and that you guys did a great program on, and it's not too far from where I am. That's the Bray Road Beast. Interesting case. Of course, Linda Godfrey, I know her well, known her for years. But what did you think of that case?
Yeah, that was one where, so when we decided to do that movie, I actually did not have a great interest in the Dogman subject.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited to do that movie because I like Linda and I like her work. And I especially liked her approach to writing that original Beast of Bray Road book.
Sure.
And so when we got into doing that, I ended up coming away from it with a much greater appreciation for that story and that subject than I had going into it. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we interviewed the Walworth County Animal Control Officer, who had these really fascinating stories about a cult activity that was taking place in the area at the time, and how he thought there was a cover up taking place that, he literally thinks that there were highly placed members in the local politics who were involved in a satanic cult.
Oh.
And he basically called them out, the media years ago, and lost his job over it. But because of what he was uncovering as far as ritual animal mutilations and things like that, his belief is the Beast of Bray Road was basically some sort of demon called forward, during one of these ritual sacrifice things, which was super fascinating to me because Linda mentions it really briefly in the original Beast of Bray Road book, but doesn't spend a lot of time on it. So to get him on camera talking about that was great for us, because that is not an angle that you typically see people going down when it comes to that particular story. And I don't think people will necessarily see that angle again, because John isn't going to talk about it again. We lucked out. John needed some funds for the Kentucky Derby, and I was willing to help him out in exchange for an interview.
Yeah, you're the man with the cash, and he want to talk. Yeah, no, I get you. It was an opportunity. When it knocks, you got to take it. Now, there's two things on this radio show over the last, I would say, 5 years that have really just exploded, and that's two subject matters. One is Dogman, the other, of course, is Black-Eyed Kids. And I've talked to several people that have allegedly seen Dogman. And let me tell you, I would not want to run into one at all. I would not even want to see it from afar. That's how nasty these things allegedly are.
Yeah. It's not a it's not a pleasant cryptid. It doesn't seem like it seems like it's a little temperamental, and you know, like it's the descriptions of especially something like the Beast of Bray Road always, you know, entail the creature either eating some roadkill or snarling at someone or chasing them like it did with Doris Gibson. You know, and people are really affected in a negative way by their encounters with these things as well. So it's a very different sort of subject than something like Bigfoot. At least to me, Bigfoot really seems like a natural animal that exists in its environment. And something about the Dogman subject is a little creepier, a little darker.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because, you know, we'll get emails about Bigfoot. Hey, I saw this Bigfoot. This is the encounter I had. Very straightforward, and you know, and they're obviously a little shaken by it, but they're not scared of it. On the other hand, the Dogman, it's like, oh my God, I stayed in my tree stand for 24 hours. I was too afraid to leave because it scared me that bad. I stayed in the woods because I was just afraid to leave because it would chase me. Stuff like that. So, yeah, and another one, like I said, it's a black-eyed kids. That's another, I guess it would fall in the cryptid, I guess, if you want to stretch that far into that category, kind of alien, UFO, cryptid category, is the black-eyed kids. What do you think? What's your thoughts on that one, Seth? I mean,
it's just not, it's not a subject I've spent enough time on.
Yeah.
We're actually like talking about getting into that particular topic when we, at some point, we want to do On the Trail of the Supernatural. So like, you know, we already announced we're doing On the Trail of UFOs after the sometime in 2020, but we're supposed to do On the Trail of the Supernatural, and that would be where we dive into some of those subjects. It's just aspects of it remind me of the Men in Black, you know, the Men in Black phenomenon. But as to whether or not they're connected, I don't know. It's one of those ones that really, like you said, it's one of the more unsettling subjects, and one of those that I have yet to really dive into, mostly because it disturbs me, you know, more than anything.
It is very disturbing, but I always ask these people when they get a hold of me, do you own a camera? Can you take a picture of these things?
For the love of God,
Yeah,
take pictures of all these things. Everyone's got a camera on their damn phone.
If they're
Take
at your
the pictures,
door,
take the pictures.
take a selfie with them.
And yet, the other side of the coin is that is a very persistently reported phenomena. So whether people are imagining them, there's always, of course, a possibility they're just making it up. But you know, assuming goodwill, you know, I'm really curious about that. I can't think of the guy's name. Who was that reporter who had the initial experience back in the 90s and wrote about it?
Texas. Yeah, I forget his name. Oh, gosh.
I interviewed him a while back, and he, I mean, you know, he told the tale a few times, of course, but I mean, he certainly seemed to be a very credible, sober individual.
Sober being the operative word, right?
Yeah, I mean, and trained. He was a reporter. He was an editor. He's a lifelong journalist. You know, trained in the W's, and so I mean, his story just, I mean, it sounded absolutely credible and believable, though completely creepy and really, really unsettling. Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see you kind of switch over into the paranormal / supernatural when you head that way, because you have been focused primarily on cryptids or cryptid-like creatures. I'm wondering, is that a mental shift that will be difficult for you? Because basically what you've been doing is more or less based in the natural world. And it sounds like some of the terror in the skies, you know, veers a bit into the paranormal or supernatural, at least potentially, or even UFOs, I guess. But, you know, for the most part, cryptids are perceived to be animals of some sort, ones that we're just not aware of or don't have proof of yet. Is it difficult for you to make that transition into the
No, I mean, I think the biggest transition was actually going from like Boggy Creek Monster into Mothman, because that was a pretty big transition. But I mean, we've been doing, paranormal subjects since Mothman. Mothman got into UFOs and all sorts of weirdness. Poltergeist activity was mentioned in that film. Invasion on Chestnut Ridge is very much a paranormal film because it goes into massive UFO waves. It starts with the Kecksburg UFO crash. It's got stories about portals and orbs in the woods and like all sorts of weirdness. So no, I don't think it would be a huge transition for us, especially because it would be coming in 2021, and next year we're doing the Bell Witch movie, which is going to be our first foray into the supernatural.
That'll be very interesting, the Bell Witch one as well, because there's still a lot of interest in that old tale.
Yeah, and I just don't think there's been a really good straightforward documentary about what actually happened and what people believe happened and that kind of thing. So we, that's a road we're going to go down next year. We're making that the slate for 2020 is the Mothman Legacy, the Bell Witch, and On the Trail of UFOs. So next year should be just as insane as this year, and it's the 5-year anniversary of SEM. So no, I mean, creatively, I don't think there's anything we're afraid of doing. I know that we actually at one point were going to make a movie about Belle Gunnis, which was like, the Black Widow of LaPorte, Indiana. So that would have been just straight up true crime. So we're kind of open to doing whatever comes across our plate at this point. We want to work on our first sort of narrative feature in the next couple of years as well. And we're actually starting to talk with investors and stuff about getting that off the ground. So Momo is going to be a very different type of film from the other STM documentaries. It's going to be like 70-80% narrative and 20 or 30% documentary. It's much less. It's much more like a Legend of Boggy Creek style horror movie.
Okay, can't wait to see them all, man. I really can't. Of course, you got On the Trail of Bigfoot, that'll be dropping soon. You got that in March, and then you got Terror in the Sky, that'll be coming out in this summer, right? 2019. And then in the fall, look for Momo to drop. So all that goodness coming at you from Small Town Monsters, and it'll be interesting to see you guys shift those gears into the paranormal as far as ghosts go. Are you talking like going green screen ghost hunting, or is it going to be more of a documentary feel to that kind of filmmaking?
To the On the Trail of?
Yeah. Because the only reason why I mention that is because, the whole green screen ghost hunting has been done to death.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we'd have to be really careful with it, and it's going to be less about ghost hunting and more about some of these supernatural subjects that aren't necessarily explored very often, like black-eyed kids and shadow people and stuff like that.
I like that. I like that a lot. I like the way that you guys go into those areas, those lesser-known areas of the paranormal. Also, you don't stay in that beaten path because everyone else is on that path. And you also go into the woods. I mean, you talked about actually going in. And it's amazing how many people will look at Bigfoot, for instance, and study it, but have never actually gone looking for one. And to me, that's kind of wasted research if you're not actually going to put it into practice. So, Seth, thanks a ton for coming on. Small Town Monsters. Visit them at smalltownmonsters.com. Catch all the stuff they're putting out there. Again, Seth Breedlove, everyone, still out there making these great films. And remember, these are provided because of you guys. I mean, so give to the Kickstarter programs. Make sure you're out there supporting what they're doing because they're supporting what you're doing in turn. Until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other, and keep looking for Bigfoot. After Hours AM is a production of Midwest Radio Productions. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And please visit www.americas-most-haunted.com. This show has been produced by Midwest